की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय
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 वासुदेवाय।
हरे राम 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 सीता राम राम राम।
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 सीता राम 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 सीता
राम राम राम।
सीता राम राम राम
सीता राम राम राम।
सीता राम राम राम
सीता राम राम राम।
सीता राम राम राम।
सीता राम राम राम।
सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। बोलो भाई सब संतन की
जय।
जय जय राम कृष्ण हरि जय जय राम। जय जय राम कृष्ण हरि जय जय राम कृष्ण हरि जय जय राम 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 जय जय राम 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 जय जय राम जय जय राम कृष्ण हरि जय जय राम जय जय राम जय जय राम जय जय राम सियावर रामचंद्र की राधावर कृष्णचंद्र की सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय।
Mangal Arati. This Mangal Arati of Radha Krishna together is composed by Jugal Priyaji. You know, in South also, all the time they end.
मंगल आरती प्रिया प्रीतम की मंगल प्रीति रीति दोन की मंगल कांति हसनी दसनन की मंगल मुरली बीना धुन की मंगल आरती। त्रिभंगी हरि की मंगल सेवा सब सहचर की मंगल सिर चंद्रिका मुकुट की मंगल छवि नयनन में अटकी मंगल आरती। मंगल छटा भी अंग अंग की, मंगल गौर श्याम रस रंग की, मंगल अति कटि पियरे पट की, मंगल चितवनी नागर नट की, मंगल आरती।
Hari Om everyone. Can you all turn your videos on? That'll be awesome. Good. At about 5:55 I was wondering if I'll have this gathering today, but I'm glad to see all of you because we are trying something. I am trying something very new. Though it is already a question paper which has been given, so you should be ready. It should not be something that is, I don't know what he's going to ask and then bite your nails off and feel tensed about. The way it'll work is I'll pick one of you and ask you the question, and then you'll be on the spotlight with me and you will answer the question. Is that fair enough? And you have about 2 minutes, max 3 minutes. Is there anybody that wants to keep a timekeeper's job? I mean, if you are a timekeeper's job, it doesn't mean you will be saved from the questions. Okay, Hari and Divya, can you both be the timekeepers, please? Thank you. Okay, let's begin. But before I begin, I'm still asking a couple of you who still have to give me your darshan. Come from the unmanifest to the manifest world. Hari, if you can ping them to turn their videos on. Thank you, Ujwal. Okay, let's begin with 3 ohms. Sahanavavatu, Guru Brahma. And then look at the stock of our questions. सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. To tell you a fact, to share something with all of you, today I was almost half-minded to not have this satsang today because I woke up with a sprained neck and it is still bothering. I thought of dropping this class, but then I realized too much of fun to be missed. So I said, no, let me have that fun. This pain can be tolerated. Okay. Is there a brave one that wants to go first? Though from then on I'll keep picking. Anybody? Okay, we have one brave one. So let me put him in the spotlight and ask him the question. Hari Om Hemant.
Damn.
Are you ready?
Yeah, Swamiji.
Okay. The first question is shunning comforts and luxury a way to gain freedom over my own mind?
So, the answer is no, definitely not. There are two terms that come to mind with me: suppression and sublimation. So, if shunning comforts and luxuries is suppression, it means that sooner or later the mind will react and want the very same things that I try so desperately hard to shun. And sooner or later that will lead to a very, very bad imbalance. But if it's sublimation, it means that the process of shunning is much more gradual and is not from one extreme to another. And also, shunning is not healthy when we're clearly living in a particular kind of lifestyle that is dependent upon such comforts and luxuries. So, right now, for instance, um, if I were to suddenly say that I'm going to, start getting up 1 hour earlier than what I should and starting the very next day, I probably would end up not doing it because I have not attuned myself to do such a thing. So, in short summary, if you are ready for it, then it has to be a gradual process. But if you're not ready for it, then definitely not. So, um, well, first, the mindset to shun such things has to be there, but it has to be a very gradual process. It cannot happen all at once.
Thank you. Now let me quickly ask Hari Chaitanya.
Hari Om, Swamiji.
Hari Om. So what would you like to add on this?
Sure. So luxuries and comforts are what we make of them. It's not a set thing that this is a luxury and this isn't. If you think back to, many of you were in college, a nice 7-layer burrito and a cheesy gordita crunch with a Twinkie on a Friday, that's a luxury in college. When we're on the it's an amazing thing to have. For those of you that are working professionals, that's not really a luxury. You can go for much greater things. But the point being, how attached am I to these things? And if I go without them for a while because of circumstances, does that disturb me? Is that a change that affects me or not? Now, as far as giving up these luxuries, then, I've identified something that is an attachment, and I say no, desisting from it, not engaging in that. But that's not the be all end all. If I really want to improve and understand myself, I have to have the right intention of giving that thing up. If it becomes an ego thing, the rest of you eat Twinkies all the time, I don't, I resist from that luxury, therefore I'm better than you, I'm going in the wrong direction. That's an ego problem at that point. So what is the intention behind giving up these luxuries? Is it taking me in the right direction? That determines, is it good for my growth or not?
Awesome. That kind of gives it a nice completion to it. The next question that I have, I hope you're ready. Ayush Shah.
Hari Om Swamiji.
There you go. The question that I have for you is, many times when we come to walk a very sincere path, there are a lot of scriptural guidelines. So the question is, with regards to that, how do I overcome the hurdle of feeling restricted by scriptural guidelines?
So I think like this, when we follow the scriptural guidelines, it gives us a sense of discipline. This sort of discipline which is essential to have like a balanced approach forward. For example, the example that you gave about the car. So if we have everything in control, if we have uh, the rear view mirror adjusted, all the equipments adjusted, then we can focus, then we get a sense of freedom. So if we realize that we are getting a sense of freedom with the restrictions that we have imposed on ourselves because of the scriptural guidance, so that freedom itself can be a motivation to go forward. And um,
Okay, I'll take that much. Hari, do you have anything to add to it?
Again, when it comes to scriptural injunctions, then guidelines to live by, at a certain point, I'm making a choice as a sadhaka that in the long run to improve, this is what I'm taking as a guideline, something I'm willfully going forward in. So at that point, when I feel like it's restrictive, it's only imposing that discipline on me. And I believe in Bhagavad Gita, it's given that different kinds of sukhas, different kinds of happiness. And there's a delineation between Rajasic Sukha and Sattvic Sukha. The Rajasic Sukha is that happiness which is like nectar at first, but then like poison. Sattvic Sukha is like poison at first, but then like nectar. Meaning in Rajasic Sukha, I have a desire and boom, it's fulfilled right away, on demand. That's the best kind. Who wouldn't want that? And all my desires I instantly fulfill and I feel happy, but I find that that only drains me. There's more temporariness, pain, all of these things come up. But that sattvic sukha that scriptures offer me, that's what to take hold of. In the beginning, it's awful. I have a desire and I have to tell myself, no, control this mind, don't go for it. Who would want to do that? So at first it's like poison, but if I stick to it, I see in the long run, it's like nectar. As Puja Guruji says, this is my favorite quote of his of all time. He says, freedom is the, yes, freedom is the difference between what I want now and what I want most. And the only way to get to that is discipline. That's straight from Puja Guruji.
Awesome. Thank you. And moreover, if you look at it in life, supposing I want to shed few pounds, then I have to have a certain discipline, a certain exercise routine, certain environment that I have to create where, though there are enough things that can tempt me, but the point is, I am convinced that this self restrictions that I am putting on myself is what ultimately leads me to that which I am wanting to gain the most. But if that conviction and clarity is not there, anything that is prescribed from the outside, then I feel quite a resistance to it. But if I'm convinced and if I have the clarity, then there is only inspiration that can be drawn from it. Thank you, Ayush. Now moving to the next question, before which let me pick on Rubini. Hari Om, Rubini.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om. So my question to you is, how do I remain grateful in the face of unexpected and intense problems?
So in life, unexpected and intense problems will always come and go. This is the reality of our changing world. And if we are not prepared to accept that, then they will always seem unexpected and intense, and we will feel defeated in that process. So instead, what we must do to remain grateful is to accept and be ready that life's nature is to give us these unexpected circumstances that we must deal with. And this is an opportunity to remember that Bhagwan is giving us those circumstances that we are meant to experience in every moment. And that even what may seem unexpected and intense is there for us to grow from. And so by seeing the Lord in our day-to-day, in even the challenges, we can bring about a heart of gratitude by remembering his compassion towards us in these even unexpected circumstances. And because of that attitude of wanting to continually learn and improve, that will naturally bring about gratitude from what we are experiencing.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Rubini. Hari, do you want to add something on?
Nothing to add, Swamiji.
One point that I would like to do mention is Pandavas were no wonder great-minded people. But their mother was way above. At the end of the entire Mahabharata war, Bhagwan sits down with the entire family, and Bhagwan Krishna asks each one of them of a boon, a wish that he would fulfill. Then Kunti Devi asks, Bhagwan, please fill my life with challenging, unexpected miseries. Because whenever there have been these kinds of challenges, that is when I have been the best to dig in deeper, to find more resourcefulness, and it has made me a better me than those times when things were hunky-dory. I mean, she didn't say hunky-dory, but you get the point. So the challenges that we think are really pulling us apart, if we step back and look at it as that rough surface where the edge of my personality can be sharpened, that is where the gratefulness and thankfulness can be found in. I mean, I agree with all that you have said, and an added point to that. Thank you, Rubni. Okay, now let me call upon Sanjana.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om, Sanjana. Ready for your question?
Yes.
Easy one or a difficult one?
I think it's a difficult one.
Okay. Why should I refrain from being emotional? Have emotion but do not become the emotion. If passion or zeal for a cause inspires me to work for it.
Swamiji, can I just say when Swamiji put this list in, I saw this question and I was like, this is a really good question, Swamiji. Anyways, so glad I get to answer it, I guess. So I think how I thought about this is, in general, right? It's really great that passion and zeal can be used to drive us and be our ambition towards going towards like a higher goal. But the problem becomes if passion and zeal is the only reason that we are pursuing something, because we are attached to that passion. The passion is what's driving us, and it comes back to being attached to the emotion. And so if something happens, let's say we're pursuing like a career or pursuing a professional growth thing, and it doesn't come the way that we want it to come, if we're attached to the passion and only working on the passion alone, we're not able to handle any sort of like negative consequences. And I think then we'll lose the passion and then also lose the ambition to do the work. I think the work has to get done, right? Like regardless of if it's a job or if it's our spiritual growth, the work has to happen. And so to find the reason behind doing that work, if we can find that in more than just passion and zeal, I think it's more long-standing and it'll be more consistent.
More sustainable.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, at least.
Yeah. Hari, do you want to add?
Yes. So, very good point that Sanjana made, that passion and zeal does assist me in wanting to do anything. Because if this forum, for instance, we're meeting every Sunday, if the reason we come here was only intellectual stimulation or that we had nothing else to do, that wouldn't sustain us being here. We're deriving some joy from it. You know, it's a non-judgmental forum where Swamiji is inspiring us to introspect, and that's something we gain clarity from, that's something we love. Therefore, there's an emotional connection with that, not just an intellectual one, and that's a wonderful thing. But as Gurudev points out many times, for the one who thinks life is a comedy, for the one who feels life is a tragedy. Meaning if I, with my skin in the game, if I feel affected by every little thing that goes on through my work, then emotions are overpowering my thinking and that clarity is gone and I feel completely tossed every time something happens. Now, when it comes to people, there's a dichotomy. We're either a head person or a heart person, meaning either we rely on logic, go rational whenever a situation comes up, or I have an emotional response, sometimes visceral. I don't really say, you know, I think about something, I say, I feel this way. Even in my language, it reflects. So some of us are more, you know, inclined to be more emotional than always going rational, but that's not a good or bad thing. It's just at what point does that emotion overpower rationality? That's what I have to look out for then.
Awesome point to add. Thank you, Hari. Thank you, Sanjana. Let me call upon Ujjwal.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om Ujjwal. So my question to you is the next one. How do I step back and analyze a situation objectively without blaming the world for my unhappy state of mind?
Well, if you were to analyze a situation objectively, and if you were to start blaming everyone, that would mean that your mind is in control of the situation rather than you, right? If your mind has tendency to, it's like an animal kind of, right? It has a tendency to react very viscerally, very sort of roughly to any sort of situation. And the fact that you are giving into the mind by letting yourself blame other people for any such situation you find in is a sign of weakness, in that you do not have proper control over the mind yet. So by bringing the mind under control through sadhana, through like restraint in terms of your attachments, and like restraint in terms of letting your emotions control you, I think that will allow you to use the intellect, use the buddhi to analyze the situation and step back, because it's all about bringing the mind under control.
What if I have a conviction, I believe that I am fine, it is because of that environment, because of that person. If that changes, then I'll be awesome. There's nothing that I have to change. It is only them or that environment that has to change. How does one handle that kind of a conviction or a mindset?
Well, in that instance, I would say that in terms of it's just the only if it's only the other party that has to I still feel like there is something that can be that if you consider the situation objectively, there is something that you can do on your end to rectify in any sort of situation, whether it means talking with the other person who you think might be at fault, trying to figure out what they need, what they want out of the situation, and trying to help them get there. I think by in any situation, looking at how you can make it better rather than who's at fault. I think having that mindset is a good path.
Good way to look at it. Hari, how would you answer the first question and my objection that I raised at the end?
So for the first question, then looking at it objectively and not assigning blame, in any situation that I find unconducive, notice I didn't say a situation that's bad, that I find unconducive, my first instinct is to assign blame to someone or something. Even if it's the most irrational or even at the macro level. I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan. My team has been for decades and what seems like centuries now. We blame Jerry Jones every single year. Only cares about money, doesn't bring in good players. That's what it is. Blame has to be assigned to someone. In the little instances of my life as well, when things don't go well for me, I have to assign blame to someone. And who is the last person I want to blame for things going wrong? That is myself. I'd rather assign it to anyone else, letting me off the hook, letting me wallow, marinate in that self-pity of it didn't go my way and it's not my fault. Someone else has something to do with it. The moment I look at it as, okay, if someone else were going through the same situation, what advice would I give to them? Because as a brahmachari now, personally telling you, it's very easy to give advice to people. Because for some reason, people think, oh, you must know something, and they'll listen. That's listen. And I find myself sometimes dispensing advice like that. When I go through a similar situation, if someone told me that same advice, I might have a knee-jerk reaction. Meaning, not only am I not looking at things objectively, kind of full of it when I'm giving that advice, then aren't I? I have to check myself at that point. And to Swamiji's second question, that yes, if this one thing were tweaked here and there, things would be perfect. We all go through that. I'm convinced if I was a little bit taller, if I weighed a bit more, if I was a bit faster, I'd be a Dallas Mavericks player. No doubt about it, I would be. But because those things aren't there, that's why I'm not that. So, which is called...
That's how you became a brahmachari?
Yeah. Paristhiti-vada, where I have to shuffle everything else around me and things will be fine. But logically looking at it then, doesn't it take so much more effort to shuffle things around me in my life and make it perfect and keep it permanent rather than changing my own mindset? Just on a logical level, wouldn't it be so much easier to change this one entity than changing everything else around me? If I come to that understanding, then the blame game falls away, and trying to fix everything to make it conducive to me all the time, I see how futile that is, and I stop trying to do that.
Awesome, because I feel I'm working with would have, could have Mavs player alongside with me. Awesome. Thank you, Ujjwal, and thank you, Hari. Now proceeding forward, Aparna Nanduru.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om Aparna. Now, the next question that I have for you is, what is the difference between being indifferent to the world versus being apathetic and callous to the world?
So one thing that that comes to mind immediately for me is in our local center, we have Swami Dhirananda. So I think of my interactions with him and how that has shaped definitely my answer to this question. So one thing that I notice that he has the indifference to the world is that he remains compassionate. And that's what separates him from having apathy or callousness. He has compassion, he has a calm mind. And at the same time, he also, with one thing that I've found too is vairagya, which is when somebody is dispassionate. There's like a slow, strong attraction towards inner fulfillment, which is happening through viveka. So that's the mindset that I have seen personally in Swamiji. Is very inspiring, and that's that mindset is definitely what enables this compassion, enables this interaction with. I can ask him whatever I want to. He's always so welcoming and kind. Yet at the same time, with external circumstances, with any external ups and downs, that doesn't affect his state of mind. That doesn't affect his ability to continue to stay in touch with his true nature, Ananda.
Awesome. It's always good to have a very inspiring role model. And I see where you draw your inspiration from. Hari, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Indifference is a very misunderstood word. Because udasina, the word in Sanskritam, doesn't have a really proper one-word definition in English, we say indifference. But in English, in our common parlance, indifference means being aloof. Everyone else is in sorrow and I seem to not care, distance from it completely. But the indifference spoken of here is, what kind of baggage do I carry from my experiences? And let's look at an example of a person who has treated me badly. Someone who's insulted me, in a fit of anger said something bad to me. The difference between indifference and callousness in this situation is, indifference would be me saying, okay, this person has spoken to me in a certain way. I admit it did make me feel bad. But moving forward, interacting with this person, can I drop this bias that I have towards them? Can I continue to give them the benefit of the doubt, give them a clean slate, and we both grow together at that point? Callousness would be me being jaded. This is the way this person is. How dare they speak to me this way? From now on, whenever I have to work with this person, it's with that guardedness of, I have to behave a certain way. I will never give them the benefit of the doubt. And as Aparna mentioned, the energy is your role model for this. For this specific idea and mindset, I see Swami Sarveshananji as my role model for that. And so many times he says, look, people around us will affect us in different ways, not of their own accord. Things happen, outbursts happen. If I hold that grudge, I'm hurting myself the most when that happens. Give everyone the benefit of the doubt as much as you can. That's one of the biggest sadhanas that really helps us all grow.
Awesome. To be compassionate is the key. Good. Thank you, Aparna. But just to, I just saw there is one more Aparna. So let me call in the other Aparna, Aparna Pateria. Hari Om, Aparna.
Hari Om, Swamiji.
Okay, my question to you. What is the difference between intelligent self-restraint versus unintelligent self-restraint?
I could be really cheeky and say that it's already answered in the question because one is with the intellect and one is unintellect, but I think that's mean, so I won't do that.
Oh, you didn't do that yet? I thought you said.
No, I'll do what I have to do. I'll elaborate. So unintelligent self-restraint is when Swamiji had mentioned last week, there's a higher mind and the lower mind. There's a higher mind that is inspired by ideals and principles, and then there's the lower mind, which is drawn to what is lower and not noble. When I am unintelligently self-restraining, although the goal may be worthy, my method of doing it is not using the ideals and principles that should be guiding me to that good goal. Instead, I am reactively pushing away all the things maybe that I dislike about myself, or reactively suppressing or tamping down all the things I feel I should not be feeling. And instead, that just drags me down lower into the lower mind's attraction. Whereas the higher mind looks at the situation objectively and says, I need to change. And I do need a self-restraint because freedom comes through discipline. And if I have a noble goal, I should achieve it by noble means. And therefore, I will do it slowly. I will do it carefully. I will be compassionate towards myself while holding myself accountable. And I will still reach my goal in time. And there's nothing wrong with taking time if I am moving in a authentic, noble, proper way. So one is inspired by the intellect, and one is reactive and inspired by emotional outbursts.
Pretty good. Hari?
And to build on that, what is the very intention that I'm restraining myself for? Is it for adulation from others? Is it to find a loophole, saying, okay, if I tamp this down, I can indulge myself in other ways? That's like a trade-off that I'm making with myself. Or is it for that goal of, this is how I improve myself? This is an attachment that I have. Let me cut it by restraining myself from it. Therefore, I don't indulge in it further. I'm seeing lots of U of E's on the screen. So during the youth empowerment program, during the course, what is the worst part of the day in the schedule? Not the waking up early. For me, it was the modem portion. That's the hardest part of the day. You want it. They're your friends. Everyone's around you. You can't talk to them. So unintelligently, we restrain ourselves. How? I'm not talking, but we can write notes to each other, can't we? And if I want to point to someone to something, because is not a word. It can be taken many different ways. Therefore, finding loopholes in that. In the intention, Swamiji would, till he was hoarse, he would keep saying, this is so you can focus on your studies. This is so you won't get distracted. This is so you can have a calm mind. All of that goes out the window because that's unintelligent self-restraint. What's the purpose of the restraint? Do I understand it's being imposed for a good reason? And am I aligned with that then?
Thank you, Hari. Thank you, Prana. Now let me call upon Parth. Hari Om Parth.
Hari Swamiji.
The question for you is, what is freedom and why do we care for freedom?
Freedom is moksha, liberation. To kind of expound upon what I'm saying, the triangle of avidya, kama, and then following the karma that follows from that must be broken, and without which we won't be able to experience and have the anubhuti of the true self that we all want to be. And that's why we should care for it, whether that be with satsang, with Swamiji, or with Hariji. And also the sabhagya that I have of Hariji making me laugh in the midst of just like all the school stuff is awesome. So I must say I'm still thinking about the monam stuff, so that's why. But anyway, the freedom is also removing the vasanas and the impressions that we have from our millions of births and this current birth. I think yap mein yaad aati hai, something comes to mind in yap, where Swamiji was, we use some scars to remove some scars from our previous births, and that's very important. And something that's coming to mind right now is, and something that I've been working on is, gaining the noble Devi Sampatti. And when I think of Swami Tejomananji's commentary on Hanumanji and the humility that he has, and there's something so beautiful that he says was that in the first doha in Hanuman Chalisa, it talks about Pavana Putra, Pavana Sutta. The Swami Pujya Gurudev says that Vayu, like sun gives its service in the day and gives light during the day, and then Chandrama gives darshan at night, provides light at night. But Vayu is always there, purifying the atmosphere. Whenever we cook food, or if there's like a room is stuffy and we close the windows, and we let air come in and it purifies it. In the same way that antakarana kishuddhi is very important, and that Vayu is also within us, and it's in with our pranas. So the humility that's there with that, and it never says any like I am here and I'm giving your breath and giving you life. So these to keep it short, acquiring these Devi Sampatti and freeing yourself from your previous impressions of millions of births, and always being in the grace of gurus gives you that ananda, and that's why we should care for it.
Thank you, Parth. Divya, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. So I will answer the question backwards. Why do we care for freedom first? And you had mentioned moksha, right? Is that freedom? But moksha here represents the actual complete peace, joy, and safety, right? Moksha there is a state that was never bound. It was never restricted to experience freedom. So that's a state that we don't recognize and that we are trying to reach from this particular standpoint. So why do I care for freedom? I want to experience that state of bliss, freedom, and joy and peace. And so in this particular context, freedom here is intelligent self-restraint. So when you gave those examples of Daivi Sampati or Hanumanji, the humility he has, those are all values that we should pivot our mind to so that we start to drop all of the unnecessary baggage, right? Or in this case, vasanas, bad tendencies, idiosyncrasies, our negativities, our lower mind, to drop all of that. So in this case, freedom is that intelligent self-restraint so that I'm headed in the right path set by the examples given to us, so that we drop the lower, walk to the higher, so that we can finally experience that peace, joy, and safety, which is the moksha that is being described.
Awesome. Basically, it is our true nature, and that is why we are seeking it. Anything otherwise, we would want to tear it up and get out of it. Good. Thank you, Parth. Now let me invite Bhavani. Hari Om, Bhavani.
Hari Om, Swamiji.
The question for you is, why is it said in this particular chapter that freedom can only be achieved through discipline? Isn't it contradicting each other?
We achieve freedom through discipline because discipline allows us to use the art of right contact. So without the art of right contact, technically we are free to make mistakes, and we're free to do things that are contradictory, do things that are not beneficial to us. But when we use discipline to control our body, to get out of laziness or unhealthy habits, and then to control our mind to only entertain emotions that are good for the long run, and then entertain thoughts that are only noble or that are more noble or are dedicated to something higher, then we actually open up our faculties to be more alert and conscious and efficient and focused. So really we have more choice, we have more options to feel like happiness, peace, safety, because now we know the right ways to interact with the world and the right way to gain the benefits of freedom.
Awesome. Divya?
Yeah, a few words. The art of right contact, you headed in the right direction, right? So discipline here is for our very mind and for nothing else, right? When we don't have that art of right contact, we feel sorrow, and that is a sign of being burnt and the sign of non-freedom, right? So once we put discipline to our mind, it starts to harness the energy that it has to experience that peace, joy, and safety. So, discipline is like the car engine that captures the power of explosion in the right way so that the car can actually move forward in the direction I need to. So, discipline here sharpens our mind so that we can address every experience in life in such a way to produce peace, joy, and safety.
Peace, joy, and the secure environment. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Bhavani. Now let me invite Suraj. Hariam, Suraj.
Hariam Swamiji.
In the last question, they've been talking about art of right contact, art of right contact. In a couple of answers, we have heard it. In your own words, how would you put it? And how do we implement it, this art of right contact, in our day-to-day lives?
The art of right contact it's the idea that we are living in a world where we are exposed to lots of objects that we perceive with our equipments. But this world, it feels so real. And in our interactions, we get initially very pulled in, where we think that we're deriving joy from the objects that we are interacting with. But when we give it more thought, we start to realize that objects from the outside world only give us temporary bits of happiness. And the scriptures and Guru show us that there is actually something much higher than this happiness that we tend to encounter in our day to day. And so, first, understanding that there's a deeper type of happiness out there helps us to realize what kind of relationship we're supposed to have with this outside world. And the way that we currently tend to live is thinking that fulfilling our outside desires makes us happy. But I think that Gurudev is showing us that even though we are interacting in this outside world, we won't actually reach that full deep happiness unless we interact with the outside world in the appropriate way. And the art of right contact would be disciplining our equipments, sharpening our body, mind, and intellect in a way that we're able to have control, accessibility, and balance. And that allows us to tap into a part of ourselves in which there is endless amounts of joy and freedom. So only when we interact appropriately with the outside world, which means not getting attached to them, then we allow our disciplines to harness us to have access to liberation.
Thank you, Suraj. Divya, do you want to add any?
Yeah, sure. So the art of right contact, right, can be translated as the art of right perspective or my reading of a situation. So any experience in life, right, when I'm completely clueless as to the experience that's happening to me, I don't understand it, I can't figure out what to do with it. That cluelessness is when I'm in a crisis mode, right? So here, I have to learn to step back and use that, change my perspective in how I'm reading that situation. If I'm completely clueless and I need help understanding and seeing, get advice, do some reflection, right? And then the second stage is, all right, great. I've changed my perspective. I understand I have to look at this in a different way, but I still struggle to get myself to do. and act according to the solutions that's required, right? Now I've changed that crisis into a problem. It's just unsolved, right? I haven't addressed the situation. I understand what's going on. I know how to address it, but I can't get myself to do it. That requires a little bit of discipline and practice to get my actions together to follow my mindset. And finally, when we do achieve that, we come to a solved situation that, because of my right perspective, I can read the situation correctly. And with that practice and discipline that came with that practice, I can now act on what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's just a situation, and it's not a problem. It's not a crisis.
Thank you, Divya, in incorporating situation, problem, and crisis with respect to our experiences. Thank you, Suraj. Now let me see. Arnav.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om, Arnav. The question for you would be, what is the difference between inner independence as described in the Vedanta Shastra, and the freedom that a nation's law may grant us? This question straight up, I have picked it from the Self-Unfoldment book itself.
Oh, it's funny, Swamiji, is and I was telling Brahmachari Hari this last week, like after last week's discussion, I was so confused because like the version of the book I have is different. So I was messaging like, are people like getting insights that, I'm not strong enough to grasp, or like, do I have the wrong version of the book? So he said there's two versions. I'm waiting on the correct version to come in, but so I don't know what Guruji says in the book itself about this question, but my take on it would be that the political laws of any country grant us some kind of opportunity for life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So, grounded in the material kind of aspect of the world, and what I call like the rat race of the world. So being able to go after these material desires in any way we wish. But what Vedanta does is it unlocks the potential for us to go after that, like what Brahmachari Hari was saying earlier, not what we want now most, but what we know we will want permanently, or what was it he exactly said? Freedom, not that I want now, but the freedom that I want most, right? So, the laws of this country technically allow Brahmachari Ji to be a Mavs player if he wants, but he knows that that's not in his path, right? So that conviction and understanding that those types of desires are based in maybe Rajas Guna or Tamas Guna, but not in Sattva Guna. I think that's what Vedanta unlocks for us, is understanding that there's desires that beyond just the surface, once we dig deeper, there's something more that the nation's laws might not give us.
True. One point that I would like to add there is the true inner independence is not even bound by Sattva Guna. It is something when you transcend all the three gunas. That phase is called Gunatita. Gunatita means the one who has transcended these three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamo Guna. And that can happen to a person who has sharpened their mind, their entire inner equipment is non-agitated, it is accessible, and they can turn it to the source, the core of our own being. That is where, or that is when, the true independence can be experienced. Thank you, Arnav. I think we have time enough for one more question. Let's see who gets the opportunity for the last question. Shivani?
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om, Shivani. So the question that I have for you is a little elaborate, big one. You have seen the BMI chart, right?
Yes, Swamiji.
Do you remember it?
Yes, Swamiji.
Very good. So in that BMI chart, starting from Om, Vasanas, then BMI, PFT, OET. So what is the relation between the body, perceiver, and objects? What is the relationship between mind, feeling, and emotions, the intellect, thoughts, and thinking?
The body and the mind and the intellect, the top layer, Swamiji, is they're our equipments. So they're the equipments with which we perceive and feel and think. So through the body, the mind, and intellect, we are the perceiver, we are the feeler, and we are the thinker. And that is enmeshed, in Gurudev's words, in the objects and emotions and our thoughts. Would somebody like me to elaborate on that?
One more minute.
Oh, sure. So, for example, our body is what we use to interact with the world. And through the body, we perceive the world through our five senses and through our karmendriyas and jnanendriyas. And by doing that, we become enmeshed in the objects of the world. We are able to perceive the objects of the world with our body. So that's our equipment. And then next, if you come to the mind, we become the feeler, and the feeler feels the emotions. And then in the last layer, we have the intellect, which is our equipment that we use. And we become the thinker to see our thoughts.
I'm glad the vocabulary and the way of presentation, you changed it from I am the body, mind, and intellect to I become identified with the body, then I become the perceiver, then I become identified with my emotions. So you change that, which is what I would have corrected. Another way to look at it is the BMI are the three equipments that we have. Perceiver, feeler, thinker, the PFT, as it is mentioned in the chart, that is called the individuality. The perceiver plus feeler plus thinker, you put it together, that is this individuality. And with this personality, what do I interact with? It is the outside field. And that outside field is objects, emotions, and the thoughts, ideas. So in the objects, it covers the entire field. People, places, time, things, all of that come under objects. And how I interact with it. Now, if you have these 9 aspects of it under accessible balance, then you have won your mind. And if you have won your mind, those who win your mind, those are the ones that win the world. So if we have won this world inside, then the outside becomes truly a game to breeze by, which we will see in our next chapters. Thank you, Shivani.
Thank you so much.
Now, do let me know. This is definitely a new experience for me to do this on the fly, on the live kind of a thing. But I felt good. How many of you felt good with this experience of interaction? Okay. Anybody who has a complaint, you can thumbs down, then I'll find you to have a discussion with you. Not for the reasons that you're all smiling, just to have a word with you. There were at least about 7-8 of you who did not get the opportunity to answer, and I can see the expression. We are fine, Swamiji. We are not missing it at all. But I have made a note, and next time, in next 3 weeks' time, I will make sure that you're one of those who are responsible to answer. As they say, I'm keeping my eyes on you guys. Thank you for making this interaction quite interesting. We'll wait for the next satsang, which is Sunday, with the second chapter, with the summary of it, which I'll be speaking, and see you around then. There is a lot of cases that we hear back in India. It is going up. Hope and pray that your family back in India are all doing well and being safe. The prayers that which we are offering, understand that there is sitting here, instead of feeling helpless, the best thing that we can do is sincerely pray and offer our prayers in support of, in wishing for their quick recovery and balance wherever they are. So when we are going to end with the prayers, please think of all of them and offer your prayers for their welfare, well-being, and quick recoveries. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanta Shanta Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Stay safe, everyone. See you in the next satsang. Hari Om.